History tells the story of the world and of our lives. Sometimes that history goes bump in the night. Broadcasting from the center of oddity and the supernatural in Central Florida, it's the History Goes Bump podcast.
Hello, you spooktacular people. Welcome to this 472nd episode of the History Goes Bump podcast, Ghost Tours for the Theater of the Mind. I am your host, Diane.
And this is Kelly.
Kelly, we're doing one of our favorite episodes. We love doing our haunted cemeteries, but I think even more than that, we love our investigative episodes.
Absolutely.
Back in 2016, we featured the Whaley House here at History Goes Bump, and you and I got to go inside and investigate for a couple of hours while we were near San Diego last week.
Yes, we did.
So we're going to be sharing the results of that here. We'll do a brief little coverage of the history, and then we'll get into our findings. Before we get into that, we want to welcome into the Spooktacular crew, Nerissa, William, Bart, Amanda, Brenda, Christy with a CH and a Y, Melanie, Lacey with a Y, Emily, the Lady Bills, who I know's real name is Jennifer, Michaela, and Lycanus.
Thank you so much for joining us in our Facebook group.
And now this moment in oddity.
Many of us have had the fun experience of a clown twisting and turning balloons into this object or that. However, most of us have not had a balloon artist create something taller than us and worthy of an artistic award. Let me introduce you to Mark Verge of Canada. This man creates larger-than-life sculptures that require thousands of balloons to assemble. This artist began twisting balloons around 30 years ago and is today an 8-time world champion of balloon artistry. His company is appropriately named Extreme Balloons. Some of his pieces of art encompass a life-sized Flintstone car with Fred and Dino in the vehicle. He has also created Bumblebee from the Transformers, amongst many others. However, his most popular pieces of balloon art are various dinosaurs, like a T-Rex using 1,400 balloons, a Stegosaurus, Utahraptor, Allosaurus, and Spinosaurus. The artist has had commissioned work from the Royal Ontario Museum, Field Station, dinosaurs in the US, and even a T-Rex balloon costume in Shanghai. According to Mark, his favorite creation to date was the Bumblebee Transformer. To be certain, creating balloon creatures larger than the average man certainly is odd.
This is Victoria from victoriaslift.com. When I'm not taking those who must choose their destiny for a ride on the lift, I'm listening to History Goes Bump podcast. History isn't boring, it's terrifying. The past remains with us, and so do its spirits. Can you hear them calling? They want you to know their stories. Listen now to their voices and the truth from the past.
And now this month in history.
In January on the 16th in 1853, Andre Michelin was born in Paris, France. Andre was a French industrialist who, along with his brother, ended up founding the Michelin Tire Company. Due to a cyclist asking the brothers for assistance with fixing a flat tire, the brothers began exploring methods of creating detachable tires. At the time, cycling was one of the most common modes of transportation for the area. During this time frame, the common way for mounting tires was for them to be glued directly to the rims of the wheels. Andre's brother, Edouard, developed a patent for a detachable pneumatic bicycle tire. Once this bike tire patent became instantly popular, the brothers set their sights on automotive tires. In 1895, the brothers entered the Paris-Bordeaux-Paris automotive race using their patented tires. Their entry did not win the race, but due to the impressive tires, the race launched the market for the detachable, pneumatic tires for cars. After this, the Michelin brothers quickly became the leading automotive tire supply company to the newly begun car industry and still remains one of the largest suppliers in the world today.
History Goes Bump featured the Whaley House on an episode in 2016, and it has been on our bucket list to investigate for a while. We finally had the opportunity to do that in January of 2023 during a quick trip to hang out with family back in California. The Whaley House is the oldest brick structure in Southern California and was built by Thomas Whaley Jr. The home served a variety of purposes and sits on an old hanging ground, so it isn't surprising that people claim that this is one of the most haunted houses in America. Join us as we share our investigation of the Whaley House.
The Whaley House is located in Old Town San Diego that today is a historic district with buildings dating from 1820 to 1870. And a lot of those buildings have now been turned into all kinds of restaurants and shops. It's a neat little area to check out. Adjacent to Old Town is Presidio Park. Originally, this area was a military outpost set up by the Spanish and named the San Diego Presidio. For decades, it served as the primary settlement because of the military presence. After most of the major threats were dealt with, the settlers moved to the lower part of the bluff that the Presidio sat upon, and this newer settlement became the center of the government. By the 1820s, the town of San Diego was flourishing. The Mexican government gave San Diego its city charter in 1834. Mexico referred to cities as pueblos, and San Diego only held this status for a few years because the population declined. Can you believe that, Kelly? Considering how many people live in Southern California now?
Not at all. That's a little shocking.
California became a state in 1850, and San Diego was named the county seat of San Diego County. By the 1860s, people were moving from the area to what is now downtown San Diego because it made shipping easier, and Old Town moved into the background.
The Whaley family were of Scots-Irish origin, and they immigrated to America in 1722, laying down roots in Plymouth, Massachusetts.
I wonder if they actually put their feet right on the rock.
That little bitty rock?
That little bitty rock. And people who've been to Plymouth know what we're talking about, because you look over the side and you're like, that's Plymouth Rock?
Alexander Whaley was an American patriot and contemporary of General George Washington. He was one of the participants in the Boston Tea Party, and he later fought in the Revolutionary War. He was a gunsmith by trade and used his skills to provide flintlock muskets to the soldiers. He also gave them use of his Long Island home. The gunsmith business would continue on in the Whaley family. Alexander's grandson, Thomas Whaley Sr., served in the New York militia during the War of 1812. He married Rachel Pye, whose father, William, manufactured locks in Brooklyn. They had 10 children together, and on October 5th, 1823, Thomas Whaley Jr. was born in New York City. In 1832, Thomas Whaley Sr. died. In his will, he directed that young Thomas should receive a liberal education at the Washington Institution.
The California gold rush called many men, and one of those men was Thomas Whaley Jr. He wasn't interested in mining, but he was interested in the businesses that formed around mining operations. On January 1st, 1849, Thomas Whaley left New York on a steamer cargo passenger ship called the Sutton, headed for San Francisco, California, which wouldn't arrive until July 22nd, 1849. Can you imagine being on a ship that long?
I would die.
I mean, that was over 6 months because they had to go all the way down and around. Whaley set up a store with another businessman named George Wardle on Montgomery Street. They sold hardware and woodwork from Whaley's family business, Whaley & Pye, that was located in New York. They also offered mining equipment and utensils on consignment to the many men coming to California during the gold rush. Whaley was so successful that he was able to establish his own store on Montgomery Street, build a 2-story house near the bay, and he rented out Wardle's building.
Tragedy struck in May of 1851 when an arson set fire destroyed Whaley's buildings on Montgomery Street. He decided at that time, based on the advice of Louis Franklin, to relocate to Old Town San Diego. Louis Franklin was a merchant who operated stores in San Francisco and Old Town San Diego, so he knew what he was talking about. Once Whaley arrived in San Diego, he set up various businesses with Franklin, Ephraim Morse, Francis Hinton, and even his brother Henry Whaley. With the success of his many businesses, he quickly amassed enough money to return to New York. On May 14, 1853, Whaley married his sweetheart, Anna Eloise Delaunay, the daughter of French-born parents. They set sail for California and arrived on December 7, 1853. Once the couple returned to San Diego, Whaley entered into various business partnerships, most of which lasted less than a year. On December 28, 1854, Anna gave birth to the couple's first child, Francis Hinton. He was named after a business associate of Whaley's, and Francis would be key in the Whaley House surviving through the years.
In May of 1855, Henry Whaley, Thomas's brother, and his wife Annie came west from New York. So apparently his brother married a woman named Annie, and Thomas married a woman named Anna. After arriving, they lived with Thomas and his family. Thomas and Henry went into business together and opened Whaley and Company, a general store. Starting a business with his brother would prove to be a poor business decision. Henry liked his liquor and was often publicly drunk. Thomas and Henry did not get along, and quarreling was a normal way of life. Finally, Thomas had enough, and in November of 1855, Whaley and Company was dissolved. He noticed when he studied their records that Henry often overcharged customers. Thomas told Henry he was ending the business, and Henry reacted bitterly and assaulted Thomas in the store. Talk about sibling rivalry. After he was sent out into the street, he shouted insults and obscenities and challenged Thomas to come out and fight. This ended not only their business partnership, but their personal one as well. I can imagine that would be the case.
In September 1855, Whaley purchased land that contained the public gallows and cemetery, and he knew that that was the case because he watched one of the executions. This was the hanging of the infamous Yankee Jim Robinson in September of 1852. He had been convicted of attempted grand larceny. Upon Yankee Jim's conviction, the Los Angeles Star wrote on August 28, 1852, "At the recent term of the county court at San Diego, James Robinson, otherwise called Yankee Jim, was tried for burglary and sentenced to be hung. 2 accomplices, Gray and Harris, were each sentenced to be imprisoned 1 year in the state prison. The charge upon which they were tried was for stealing a boat, but they are strongly suspected of horse stealing and even murder. Yankee Jim made powerful resistance to the arrest and was finally captured by the aid of the lasso, which in the hands of a person expert in its use is irresistible."
So did they call on Wonder Woman? Can you imagine? They just lasso the guy. Oh, gotcha.
It wasn't a golden lasso, babe.
Oh, well, it says the person expert in it, their use is irresistible. I know they had to tell the truth if Wonder Woman got you with it.
Well, I had lots of friends that would rope, so it's pretty fun to watch. And yeah, they could definitely catch somebody that way. I mean, we have watched Yellowstone.
That's true. That is true.
His execution is fixed for the 18th of September, and he says that before that time he will make a confession that will tarnish the natives. Yankee Jim was a tall man, and he had been hanged off the back of a wagon. It is said that he kept his feet in the wagon until they finally pulled them off. He then swung like a pendulum until he was strangled to death. It took nearly an hour for him to die.
Yikes.
Yeah.
No wonder he might be hanging out here.
A little bit upset about that, I would imagine. Thomas Whaley would use the wood from that gallows to build an archway in the parlor so that the spot of execution would always be marked in the house. Probably an interesting conversation piece.
I suppose so. Hey, would you like a glass of brandy? And don't you love this archway?
Let me tell you how it got there.
That wood was used to hang a man. It is definitely a very unique parlor because usually we're used to seeing either a wide open parlor or one that has the doors that you can slide closed so the men have one side and women have the other. I don't think I've ever seen a parlor in an old Victorian home that has a big archway, and that's it.
It's quite beautiful.
It is. In May of 1856, Whaley built a single-story granary for 300,000 to 400,000 pounds of grain with bricks manufactured in his brickyard on Conde Street. On August 18, 1856, Anna gave birth to the couple's second child, Thomas Whaley III. Construction began on a 2-story house and store addition in September of 1856. The Whaley House was built from brick in the Greek Revival style and cost $10,000 to build. Whaley boasted, "My new house, when completed, will be the handsomest, most comfortable, and convenient place in town or within 150 miles of here." Construction finished on August 22, 1857, and the family moved into the second floor of the house, which was meant to be their living area. The lower level was the store. Across the 32-foot wide front area, there were 5 pairs of doors, which corresponded to 5 windows upstairs. The Whaley's new home was known as the finest in Southern California. It was furnished with mahogany and rosewood furniture. There was wall-to-wall Brussels carpet and damask drapes hung at the windows. Despite being considered small in our era, at the time it was a mansion. The store downstairs was a general store, and Thomas solicited cash customers only. The store did not do well because the location proved to be too far from the center of the small community. Whaley rented a frame building on the plaza and relocated the store there.
Things were going well, but only a few months after moving into the house, little Thomas contracted scarlet fever. He was only 18 months old, and the disease proved fatal. He died in the home on January 28, 1858. Anna was pregnant at the time with the couple's third child, who was born on June 27, 1858. They named the baby girl Anna Amelia. The joy evaporated when another arson set fire destroyed Whaley's business on the plaza 2 months later.
You're just like, who keeps burning this man's businesses? Is his brother running around behind him? It's just like, why are you getting hit with arson so often?
Despondent from the loss of their son, Thomas III, and the loss of the business, the family decided to move to San Francisco. They rented out their home in Old Town. Mail agent Robert E. Doyle and his wife Sarah Doyle moved into the Whaley House in 1860. The house was large enough for more than just their family, and 3 mail carriers joined them: James E. Mason, Samuel A. Ames, and Gabriel Paradas. Unfortunately, the Doyles did not pay rent, and they were quickly evicted, and in July of 1860, Augustus S. Ensworth, a lawyer and justice of the peace, moved into the Whaley House. Because the home had sat empty for a while, it was infested with rats. I thought it was going to say skunks.
Oh, we'll have that story coming in just a moment, but yeah, either one. No, thank you.
Skunks are cute.
They are cute, but they're
Rats
stinky.
are actually cute, too.
They are too, yes.
Ensworth managed the Whaley's business interests during this time.
In San Francisco, Thomas gained employment as a U.S. commissary storekeeper under Captain M.D.L. Simpson. While living in San Francisco, Anna gave birth to 3 more children. George Hayes Ringgold, named for Major Ringgold. He was born on November 11, 1860. Violet Eloise was born on October 14, 1862. I had no idea she had the same birthday as me, and now I wish I'd known that information when we were doing the investigation.
Definitely.
And Corinne Lillian was born on September 4th, 1864. A major earthquake in San Francisco in 1868 sent the family back to San Diego. Whaley opened the Whaley and Crosswaite General Store out of the house. The family's lack of funds made them decide to rent out the front upstairs bedroom for $20 in gold coins to the Tanner Troupe. This was a theater group ran by T.W. Tanner, who within 17 days of setting up the theater, died. They had a small stage and benches that held up to 150 people. Can you imagine 150 people in that room, Kelly?
I cannot. It seems way too small for that.
Very stuffy.
People were smaller back then, though.
Yeah. One night, a member of the theater group was drunk and accused his girlfriend of being unfaithful. She denied it, but he stabbed her to death at the back door anyway. In January 1869, the Tanner Troupe moved on.
The San Diego County Courthouse utilized the former granary and rented 3 upstairs rooms for record storage. After the establishment of Newtown, San Diego by Alonzo Horton in 1868, the town focus changed to present-day downtown San Diego. During a March 1871 raid, courthouse documents were removed from the Whaley House and taken to Horton's Hall on 6th and F Street in San Diego. After the county's exit, Whaley connected the former granary and courtroom to the residence, changed the windows and doors, and altered the front portico. For some reason, Thomas Whaley returned to New York. He claimed he was settling his father's estate, but more than likely he was running away. He left Anna and the kids in San Diego, and when he returned in 1879, they were in dire straits, living off of Francis Whaley for support.
Violet and Anna Amelia Whaley both married on January 5th, 1882 in Old San Diego. Yes, both sisters married on the same day, which is very unusual, I would imagine. Anna married her first cousin, John T. Whaley, and Violet wed George T. Bertolacchi. That marriage was unhappy, and Violet and George divorced in 1884. The way we heard it is the two get married, they're going on their honeymoon, and Violet wakes up the morning after the wedding, I guess, and there's a note sitting there where George just tells her all of this wonderful stuff about himself, like, oh, I've been married before, I've got other kids, I've got all this debt, and, well, your dowry really isn't worth that much, so I'm out.
I believe he stated that he was going to go work on himself and then come back.
You're right.
It's not you, it's me.
Yes, it's the 1880 version of the it's not you, it's me, and I'm going to go find myself. This caused her tremendous humiliation. You can only imagine today it would cause you humiliation. Back then, it was even worse. Violet suffered from severe depression after that and attempted suicide. She climbed up in the window of her room and jumped into a nearby well. Hearing her screams as she fell, her father ran outside and was able to save her. The family never let her out of their sight as the melancholy deepened. It was almost as though Violet were in a trance. After about 3 weeks, she seemed to be doing better, and her mother Anna let Violet out of her sight. Violet went to her father's desk, took out his gun, which I'm trying to figure out why you would even have a weapon in the house if you have somebody who is in that kind of mind place, and went to the outhouse. This was on August 18th, 1885, and Violet shot herself in the chest. What we were told is that she nicked her lung, and so her lung is starting to fill with blood. Thomas ran out to the outhouse when he heard the shot, and he carried Violet to the parlor and laid her on a couch there where she died. And this would be almost right where the archway we just talked about is at.
Yeah, I think it's within about 2 feet.
So she literally could have been looking at that archway as she died.
After the tragic death of Violet, Thomas Whaley built a single-story frame home for his family at 933 State Street in downtown San Diego. Attempting to capitalize on the boom in that area, he maintained a real estate office at 5th and G Street in the First National Bank building with various partners. Thomas became ill in 1888 and retired from the business. He died at the State Street residence on December 14, 1890. The Whaley House remained vacant and fell into desperate disrepair until 1899, when Francis Whaley returned to the old home and undertook the restoration of the building. After restoring the Whaley House, Francis lived in the residence and made it a tourist attraction where he posted signs outside promoting its history and entertained visitors with his guitar. Other members of the family moved in, and by 1912, siblings Francis, George, and Lillian, and Anna all lived in the old house. Anna died in the house on February 24, 1913, and Francis passed away on November 19, 1914, in the home. Lillian continued to live in the house until 1953, when she moved out to enter a nursing home. The house had once again fallen into disrepair while Lillian had been living there alone.
Before Lillian's death, the old Whaley House was placed under court order for immediate liquidation to provide physical care for her. A progressive Old Town realtor listed the property for sale, recommending that it be used as a motel. Activists rallied to save the Whaley House. On September 14, 1953, Lillian Whaley died, and 2.5 years later, the county of San Diego assumed ownership of the Whaley House. The house was a dilapidated mess by this time, and the county undertook an immediate renovation. From 1956 through 2000, the Historic Shrine Foundation, under the guidance of June and Jim Reading, took charge of the Whaley House as a historic site. The Whaley House was officially named a historical site on May 25, 1960, and has been open to the public as a museum since.
The hauntings here at the Whaley House are numerous. Famous ghost hunter Hans Holzer had said that the Whaley House was possibly the most haunted house in America. The Whaleys themselves told people about their haunting experiences. Thomas was the first to hear the disembodied footsteps coming from the second floor of the house. It was not long before Anna heard them too, and complained about an oppressive feeling that would envelop her. She felt the home was cursed, and based upon their experiences, some might agree. The Whaleys' 18-month-old son, Thomas III, had died of scarlet fever in 1858 in the house. His disembodied cries are heard throughout the house.
No one knows if the Whaleys heard those cries, but they definitely felt the presence of Yankee Jim. Yankee Jim's heavy, booted footfalls have been heard by staff and guests. The Whaley's youngest daughter, Lillian, lived in the house until 1953, and she was convinced that he haunted the house. A visitor to the house once commented that the ghost had driven her family from their visit there more than 60 years earlier. Her mother was unnerved by the phantom walking noise and the strange way the windows unlatched and flew up. Wow. There's an apparition that seems to be from the time when the home served as a courthouse. It was in October of 1960 that a woman from British Columbia, Canada, named Mrs. Kirby, observed the following. I saw a small figure of a woman who had a swarthy complexion. She was wearing a long, full skirt reaching to the floor. The skirt appeared to be one of calico or gingham, small print. She had a kind of cap on her head, dark hair and eyes, and she was wearing gold hoops in her pierced ears. She seemed to stay in this room, lives here, I gather, and I got the impression we were sort of invading her privacy. This female specter seems to have been caught in a picture as well, appearing as a shadowy female figure.
Mr. and Mrs. Whaley haunt the house as well, according to multiple witnesses. Staff members claim that occasionally the doors will all lock simultaneously at the end of a tour day, as if the Whaley family is saying that they are done having guests. Their spirits seem to be residual in nature, carrying on the same duties in the afterlife as those that they did when they were living. Thomas Whaley has been photographed smoking his cigar. He has been seen walking throughout the house. Former museum curator June Reading said that a little girl of about 5 or 6 waved to a man she said was standing in the parlor. No one could see him. He has been seen by adults as well, who describe him as wearing a frock coat and pantaloons with his face turned away. He suddenly fades away after being seen.
Anna Whaley has been seen rocking a baby in a chair and tucking a child into bed as well as folding clothes. In 1964, Anna's floating, drifting spirit appeared to television personality Regis Philbin. All of a sudden, I noticed something on the wall, Philbin reported. There was something filmy white. It looked like an apparition of some kind. I got so excited I couldn't restrain myself. I flipped on the flashlight and nothing was there but a portrait of Anna Whaley, the long-dead mistress of the house. The reason Philbin was at the house was because he had just finished an interview with Hans Holzer, who had told him about the Whaley House. Philbin decided to visit the house with a friend. He detailed the experience over 40 years later with psychic Kim Russo on her TV show The Haunting of in 2013.
I had no idea that Regis Philbin was into the paranormal.
I didn't either until I actually had watched that episode back in 2013 when it came out.
The upstairs rooms have cold spots in the heat of summer and even during the winter when the heat is on in the house. Violet, who committed suicide at the house, is seen upstairs sitting or walking, and her spirit seems full of sorrow. Animals aren't left out. Parapsychologists reported that he saw a spotted dog that looked like a fox terrier run down the hall with his ears flapping and go into the dining room. The dog was an apparition. The Whaleys owned a terrier named Dolly. Every sense is touched by the supernatural here. There are scents of cigar smoke, perfume, and baked goods. There's the sound of children laughing. There is the feel of an icy touch, and many apparitions are seen.
So Kelly, here we were. We got Jared to go with us because we went back to do a late Christmas with the family and to check on your dad. And I was like, oh, we're so close to San Diego. We were staying about an hour north. I'm like, it'd be really cool if we could go to the Whaley House. And they had a group investigation that was supposed to be limited to 8 people. We actually had 10 people on it, but we were really looking forward to getting inside because you and I had seen the outside of it before
August of 2018.
That's right. And we'd gone down to actually the El Campo Santo cemetery that's at the end of the street there. And we'd wandered around in there. And then we walked down and I didn't even realize the Whaley House was there. And I looked over and I went, oh my God, that's the Whaley House.
I know, but we didn't have time to do a tour that day. I was so bummed.
We had other plans, so I was like, I've always wanted to get inside there. So I was like, if we're going to do it, I'd love it if we could do an investigation too. This was only supposed to be a 2-hour hunt, but we actually got some extra time tapped onto it. So we got about an hour and a half of actual investigation time inside the house. But before all of that started, we got there a little early. It's freezing outside and we needed to use a restroom and stuff. So we went and used the restroom.
We had a little bit of excitement, but it wasn't from an apparition.
No. Going back to you mentioning the skunks in the house, we had seen this skunk that was coming up. There's like a little yard area. It's not very big. That's right next to the house and kind of behind it. And then there's some other restaurants there.
Yeah, like a courtyard with little sidewalks winding through the area.
Exactly. A courtyard. And we'd seen this skunk walking across it, and we were like, oh, wow, there's a skunk. So we kind of made our distance. And
I pushed you to get up on the porch, and I was just going to look at it.
And he went about doing his own thing and disappeared, and we didn't see him again. So then we got introduced to our tour guide, Sam, and he told us where the restroom was. So we went and used the restroom, and I decided I wanted to go take a picture of the front of the house. And so I went to the front, and you and Jared, I didn't know where you were going, but I assumed you were returning back to where we were meeting up before going inside. As I'm coming back to meet up with you guys and get us all set up and ready to go, I notice that the skunk has returned, and it's up near the house, and I'm walking towards it, and I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to try to be quiet, not scare it, because I want to get a picture of it. So I'm watching the skunk making his way up the sidewalk, and I'm following him.
The way that the courtyard area and the homes are laid out is you have the Whaley House, you have the courtyard, there's a little bathroom building in between, not attached, but in between. And then the next house over is where the stable used to be. And so that was where we were to meet, is on the porch of that house. So Jared and I were over there. Jared was sitting on the steps. It was 3 steps up to the porch. He's sitting on the porch with his feet sitting down on the steps below. And I'm just standing in front of him about 3 feet away.
And I can kind of see the top of Kelly's head from where my vantage point is, and sort of the top of Jared's head. So I know that he's sitting on the porch and she's standing there talking to him. At the same time, I'm watching the skunk is going that way. So then I started going, maybe I don't want to start chasing it that way. And he starts going faster and faster. And I'm like, oh my God, he's going to be like right next to Kelly. Oh no, he all of a sudden makes a sharp right. So he is like heading right to them.
Yeah, he proceeded to jump up onto the step next to Jared, literally sitting within 12 inches. Jared's face was kind of turned away, and I just backed up and said, don't move, Jared, don't move. And so when I backed away from Jared, it basically gave the skunk his little exit route, and he just proceeded to jump down and trot off into the bushes. They puff their tails when they're excited. Anyway, the only time that you really see them moving with their tails down is when they're just kind of waddling along. Diane saw his tail puff up.
Yes. I mean, all I could see is he turns towards you guys. I see you all of a sudden like, and I see his little tail flicking every which way. And I'm like, oh my God.
And there was no smell whatsoever. He's very accustomed to people being in the area, according to Sam. But they've also been trying to trap him and relocate him. I hope they would only relocate him.
Yeah.
Because he's so active in the area. But he was perfectly fine. He was kind of shocked to be sitting next to Jared.
Not half as shocked as Jared was to have him sitting next to him. You know, when you look back at things, I'm like, why didn't I just flip on my video instead of trying to take a picture? It would have been such a great video.
I would have loved to have gotten a photo of him sitting right next to Jared. I'll forever have that in my mind, but it was quite amusing to have him just plop down right next to him.
Yeah. So that was the start of our evening. So that was a lot of fun. Thank God it didn't start off with any of us getting sprayed, because that would have made for a very long car ride home.
Yes, indeed.
And probably a pretty long hunt inside the house, too, for everybody else.
I don't know if they would have even let us in.
Probably not. And now a little break for a word about one of our sponsors. So we started our tour in the recreation of the courthouse. So what had originally been the courthouse, they have it set up just like it would have been at the time. As we walked into the house, we all said, hello, Whaleys, or good evening, Whaleys, introduced ourselves. The judge's chair and the witness stand are original to the courthouse. This room has a heavy feeling, and it seems to be a favorite haunt of Francis Whaley, who was the first tour guide at the house after he turned it into a museum. Sam told us that many tour guides have felt his presence and also have seen him. He likes to sit in the jury box, and we later conducted an Estes Spirit session with me sitting there where Francis usually is seen, and he's always seen wearing all black.
And this is where I get frustrated with myself, because I am always keeping things to myself instead of sharing feelings or impressions that I'm getting. So basically now when I tell the story, people just have to go off of me being honest and telling the truth as to what I felt. When we were being ushered into the courtroom, we were told we could sit in the spectator area or we could sit in the jury box. Just don't sit in the chairs that are original because they'll fall apart. Everybody went in, and I was being drawn to go sit in that same spot in the jury box where he later tells us that that's where Francis's apparition is seen. So I had that overwhelming feeling, but everybody went in before me and you were already sitting down in the spectator area. So I just sat down with you guys.
And then later on, after we were told that Francis Whaley shows up in the jury box quite a bit, you leaned over to me and goes, "That's totally where I wanted to go sit down when I first walked in here."
Yep. I need to start being a little bit more vocal, maybe in your ear or something like that. So it's not just something that sounds like I'm making it up after the fact.
Yeah, or just said, I really want to go sit over. Because I always ask you when we first get to start doing our investigating, I'm always like, what room do you want to start in? It's not because I'm just being polite. I'm like, what are you feeling? Like, where should we be going?
Right.
So I trust your instincts. Later on, the REM pod was going off a lot in this room. Sam says that several psychics who have visited the house claim that there is some kind of portal in this part of the house, and that's why this seems to be the most active room. I don't know if that's true. I don't know what I believe necessarily about portals or why that would have a portal, but clearly the courtroom is very active. The four walls of the courthouse were the first part of the house built in 1856. The rest of the house was built in 1857. So it's nice that they start you in there because that's what is the most original part of the building.
As we toured the house, we were struck by how much of the furnishings were original to the family and how small the Whaley family was in stature. Thomas was 5'3" and Anna was 4'9".
Yeah, so when we say they were small in stature, that is true.
Doorways and windows have changed, and some of the apparitions seen appear to be going through walls that had once been doors, especially a closet area in the former general store area where Thomas Whaley's desk is located. It is in this room that we heard about the black sheep of the family, George Whaley. He died in the house like most of the family. He too was named for a business partner. We then went on to the dining room, which was relatively small. The walls are lined with family pictures. Our tour guide Sam seemed surprised to see one of the chairs pulled out awkwardly at the table, and he said, "That's not cool," but didn't elaborate as to whether this was something paranormal or something else.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if he was saying it wasn't cool because whoever closed up the house didn't put everything back where it was supposed to be, or people aren't supposed to sit in those chairs because they're old. So Why would it be pulled out to begin with? So I'm not sure. I wish he would have said this chair wasn't pulled out earlier or something.
Sure. We heard about the special relationship between Grandma Anna and her great-granddaughter Marion. Unfortunately, Marion ate ant paste right before her 3rd birthday and passed away. We also were told that Anna was a secret smoker.
Yeah, I liked that they found some old receipts or something, and they were like, Anna was buying cigarettes.
Well, when her husband was gone for so long, she probably wasn't so secretive about it after all.
No, she probably needed something to take the edge off. I mean, really, if you think about it, she's lost one of her children. Her husband leaves her. Clearly, he is successful in business, but he's also not very successful in business. It's like he starts a lot of stuff and then they kind of fall apart.
Corinne Lillian Whaley was the last surviving family member to live in the house, and she was there until 1953. She never married or had children, and it's believed that her spirit is still in the house. The family had 2 Chinese servants and a Native American girl named Modesta, who worked in the kitchen.
And the cool thing about her name is Sam had only found out what her name was about a week before we came in. And he wanted to do a little bit more confirmation, so we don't know for sure that that's it, but I don't think he would have said that unless he was pretty positive.
And those servants didn't all serve at the same time. Modesta was unhappy here and ran away many times, only to be returned by her family.
And Thomas Whaley had to pay for her every time she ran away to get her back. I'm like, well, that got to be a costly servant.
She leaves an angry feeling in the kitchen dining room area. The kitchen has an opening like a window to the dining room.
Yeah, and I didn't really look closely. I don't know if it had like shutters to close it off so that wasn't open when the family was in the dining room eating, but it was definitely an opening there that you could look over into the kitchen. We went upstairs where there's the recreation of the theater that had been in the house for 3 months. This was a very small stage, and it's tilted up higher in the back than in the front. I'd never seen a stage like this before. Have you?
I had not, but Sam described the purpose of that so as if an actor was in the back and a spectator was sitting in the back of the room, they could still easily be seen.
Yeah, so they call it like down theater and up theater, I think, if you're at the top of quote unquote or the very back of the stage, you would be higher
Upstage and downstage.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a common term that most people have heard, but
I bet people don't know why.
Right, we didn't know what it was related to.
Yeah, because most stages now are just flat because the seats are the ones that go up.
And it's still called upstage and downstage just based upon where you're located on the stage, but they're not raised any longer.
Exactly. As we described earlier, there are several benches in here. The back corner is said to have a dark presence that hangs out there. People feel a heaviness in here and get scratched. Sam told us that on 4 separate nights with different groups, it was reported that the first word to come out of the spirit box was leave. We went to the master bedroom and Sam wouldn't join us inside the room because he had a harrowing enough experience that he didn't want to tempt fate. He didn't tell us what that was, but it must have been pretty major for him to not want to go in that room. Our group then went to Violet's room and heard her tragic story. They keep lots of artifacts here that they've dug up on the property. These digs were done in 2008 and 2012. The floorboards in this room are original and were the same floors that Violet stood on when she decided to end her life. We next went downstairs to the only bedroom on the first floor, which has many belongings from the family like Thomas Whaley's mustache cup. And also, I think any of the children that were born in the house were born in that room too. Next was the parlor, and we heard about the gallows wood and the archway, like what we've told you guys. A clock on the mantle sometimes goes off, even though it isn't supposed to work anymore. Sam also shared this, and then an interesting thing happened with another person on the tour.
But when people do walk underneath the archway, I can't deny they get heavy pressure on the chest, choking sensations, lightheadedness, instant headaches, instant stomach aches, X, Y, and Z. So, that's the archway. I encourage you guys to sit underneath the archway and do the Estes method, for sure. The front parlor room, you good?
Yeah.
Chairs. I had the same thing. Get it out. Just let it go. Let it go. Let it go. It's not cold, right? Thought I'd ask after the fact. So the front parlor room. How do you feel back there, love?
Good. It was like my heart was just
Sorry, you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Do you need some fresh air?
No, I'm okay.
Okay.
This could have been nothing. I don't know. Maybe she swallowed weird or something, but it happened literally as he's talking about the choking and everything. And I don't think she was putting anything on because she excused herself from the room because she didn't want to disturb what was going on. And then she came back in, as you hear, and says that she was having a little trouble breathing or whatever. And I've had an experience like this before. I've told people about at Ripley's Auditorium where there was that little toddler that started choking when the person was talking about that people get choked in this room.
Right.
So it made me wonder if she wasn't getting something, maybe a little paranormal going on there.
We decided to investigate the theater first, and Diane turned on the GhostTube app on the phone. And interestingly, we got don't leave rather than leave.
Don't leave.
Did you say don't leave?
We're not leaving. We're going to stay right here. Could you let us know your name? We introduced ourselves. We'd love it if you could tell us who you are. Can you get it to go all the way to red? You keep getting it to pink to orange.
Say what?
Would you like me to repeat what I said there? We'd love to have you, this device that's here on the floor, if you could get that to go all the way to the red color. So it'd be all the way over to the right. We would love that.
Blessed. Maybe.
We'd appreciate it if you would.
Should I go over onto the stage?
Watching you.
You're watching us? Okay. We can't see you. We'd love it if you'd show yourself too.
Both Dawson rods just pointed to the corner.
Was somebody a blacksmith?
Both Dawson rods just pointed to the corner.
So there's someone standing in the corner?
I don't know. Can you face these straight away from me, please? Is there someone standing next to me?
Lower.
Lower.
Would you like Kelly to sit down? I'm going to put this flashlight right here.
Where am I?
That's what we're wondering. Where are you? Are you in the corner? And so I thought that was interesting because he said they'd had 4 groups come in there and all of them had that happen. I'm like, we come in there and we get don't leave.
And when we were first being told about the different rooms by Sam, when we were all in a big group, this was another location where I should have said in advance, because immediately, and I think I was the first one into the room, I was drawn back to that corner where they say there's like a dark entity or something along those lines. I immediately wanted to go back to that corner. And that's actually where I sat on the benches when we were first being told about the room by Sam. And so, of course, going back in to investigate, that was a location I wanted to concentrate on.
Well, we decided we were going to do an Estes method session with me on the stage. And while we were getting that all set up, Sam came up and you guys actually have a conversation about that. Here that is.
I'd reach out to whoever is malevolent or doesn't want people in this room. That's who I would try to reach out to, find out why. You guys have been seasoned, so if something really creepy happens, I think you guys can be able to pull through more than other people. Some people when they come to this room, they just leave automatically. So I would suggest you guys just stick through it.
Well, it was interesting when you said that about that corner, because as soon as I walked in here, that was the first place that I was pulled to.
I noticed that you guys were back there, and that's another reason why I came up here to ask you guys is what was about that corner that drew you to it?
Just curiosity,
Yeah.
really. I mean, I just felt like, and usually if I'm pulled to someplace, it's because I feel the need to be over there.
Yeah. I would suggest if you guys aren't getting much activity up here on the stage, and try sitting back there. Let it go, because I do consider that a pretty heavy hot spot, and I can show you why if you really want. Maybe later tonight. I want you guys to have some time, but maybe later tonight I can show you what I'm talking about.
Okay.
But I'm curious to see what you guys come up with. I'll leave you to it.
All right, sounds good.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Then we started our first Estes session.
All right, so as we said, I'm Kelly. That's Diane. This is Jared. Just wanted to ask you a few questions. She's using a spirit box.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
3.
There's 3 of us, or is there 3 of you?
You.
Us, yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it. So clearly you know how to
Hi.
use one of those.
That was a little kid saying hi.
Hi. So we have a little kid with us. Can you tell us your age? I appreciate it.
So Kelly, there you were asking about an age, and I don't say anything through the spirit box, but I think at the tail end there, that little bit that I played there, we caught an EVP. I'm going to go ahead and play that here,
Appreciate it.
and I'll play it again.
Appreciate it.
For me, it's unintelligible, but you thought maybe it was saying,
I think it's saying 3, but I don't know if that's because I know that Marion was 3 when she died. And for anybody that doesn't know what the Estes method is, you're plugged in with noise canceling headphones to the spirit box. So you're listening to the spirit box. I'm asking questions. You cannot hear what I'm asking. So just for clarification. But with the EVP, I think that perhaps it was saying 3. What do all the listeners think? Please let us know.
I'm going to go ahead and play the rest of this Estes session now.
Or anybody else that wants to share anything with us? Is there anybody not wanting us here right now? You have something to say? Are we encroaching in your space?
Maybe.
Okay. Oh, don't mean any disrespect. We're just here to communicate.
Last week.
We weren't here last week. Did you have some kind of interaction last week?
Hola.
Almost us?
Yeah.
Jared would be better for Spanish. I don't speak Spanish all that well anymore. No sé. Yo no sé, lo siento. So,
1.
I was just going to ask again, how old? If there's a child with us.
Mike.
Mike. Is there a child with us? Or was that somebody pretending to be a child? Is there somebody that wants to communicate? How long did you spend time in this theater?
You.
Was it a theater when you were here? Wasn't a theater for
Where
very
this.
long. Wasn't this way for very long. Who's here with us? You got a new mic, but can we get a little bit more information? Is there still anyone here?
In a body. Comfortable.
There's somebody that's back here with me? Can we straighten them out, please? Does it bother you that we're in your space?
The 100th.
To know. Can you point to where you're at?
Rich.
Yes. Are you answering questions for Diane over there?
Yeah.
How many are here with us? How old are you? What was your favorite thing to do? Did you have a favorite sport or a favorite activity or hobby? It wasn't a theater for very long, but there's oftentimes a lot of energy associated with them.
Are you?
Am I what?
I'm not talkative.
Clearly. We'd like to communicate as much as possible.
There's action.
There's action. There's more people here today than usual.
Scout. Behind you.
Is there somebody behind us? Can you keep lighting that up for us, please? All the way to red?
Gavel.
I know you can light it up more than that.
Smith. That could have been blacksmith. I heard black again.
Did they have a blacksmith meeting? Did you talk about a blacksmith? I don't recall.
No, I didn't hear.
Okay. I mean, they did have a stable, but blacksmith was usually somewhere else. You have any questions?
Shot. And it sounded like a woman saying shot.
Just Violet?
Was that you, Violet, saying that?
You want us to go over to the bedroom, Violet?
Out.
You want us to go out? I know you said don't leave a little bit ago.
I could bring you to the... What?
Why do people feel a negative energy here? I don't feel anything negative. A little oppressive, maybe. If there's a negative energy here, why?
History.
The history of the space?
I just felt something blow on my thumb.
Really? Did you just blow on her thumb? You could play with her hair. Her hair is very spiky. Oftentimes her hair gets touched, so does mine. We don't mind, as long as you're nice about it.
It's like 4.
It's like 4.
Stay. Stay.
Okay. Do you not want us to go into the bedroom?
The best. Yankee.
Kelly, it doesn't matter how many times we've done this Estes session with the spirit box stuff, it always amazes me how well it works.
Yeah, it's really interesting having a conversation that just flows like that.
In almost everything I said during that one pertained to something that you were talking about. There were a few things. I really loved it when I was like, in a body, comfortable.
That was creepy.
Yeah, it's like, is something
body.
inside somebody's body here? And which made me flash back to the girl choking down in the parlor. And I'm like, And then when you were asking about what causes it to feel negative to people in here.
You said history.
Yeah. And then a few seconds, maybe it was a minute down the line at the very end there, I say Yankee. Is that Yankee Jim?
Right.
I mean, everybody has to trust that whatever I'm saying is the real deal. Honest to goodness, guys, I'm just saying what I hear.
Well, yeah, this is true. And with the noise canceling headphones, we've all tried them and you really can't hear anything. And that's why I talk very quietly also. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult to hear on the recording.
Yeah.
But I try to keep as quiet as possible.
Yeah. And not only were you being quiet, but you apparently had walked away from me and gone over towards the corner. And it sounded like you were using your dowsing rods too, because I've got my eyes closed, so I can't see. So I had to amp that so that people could hear it better. So now you're also hearing in the background. They had one of those little music box things that goes off with its motion sensor. I don't know if that group kept crossing in front of it for some reason, because it was going off a lot. So I don't know if they were getting a lot of ghostly activity or if they were just making it go off a lot.
Well, it didn't sound like they were having, any major reaction to it going off. I mean, I would imagine if it was actually reacting to a quote unquote spirit, they would have been more reactive, because that group, I believe, had never done any investigating before. So they were a little bit nervous and so forth. So I think they would have had a larger reaction if it actually pertained to something.
I would think so. We then went to the master bedroom and put the spirit box on. So we're not doing this as an Estes session. We just turned it on. So I'm going to play a little piece of that session here. And I thought this was interesting because it stretches over 5 seconds. And as most people know, when you're using the spirit box, it's like boom, 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 boom. I mean, you can make it go a little bit slower. We usually put it at 200. So it's boom, 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 boom. 5 seconds, having something going over 5 seconds, that's not something that's just coming across a radio station.
Right. It's flipping through the stations at that fast rate. And so having the same voice travel over multiple stations is unusual.
So I'm going to go ahead and play it right now. The end sounds like did ma, and then you can't understand the rest. Maybe cry, did ma cry. I wrote it down phonetically, did ma cry. So I don't know if it's kind of a southern little twist on it.
Did ma cry?
Yeah, which made me wonder, is it did ma cry? I'm going to go ahead and play just that part right here for you guys. And I'll play it again one more time. This was also on the Spirit Box.
I can ask a question, please. Straight away. Thank you.
I'll play it again.
I can ask a question, please. Straight away. Thank you.
Towards the end there, it sounds like it says Tom. I'll play it one more time.
I can ask a question, please. Straight away. Thank you.
Kelly, you felt very uncomfortable in this room, which goes back to Sam not liking the room.
Right. When I walked in originally, I mean, they have all these artifacts that are just beautiful for the time, but I felt kind of nauseous and just real uneasy the first time we went in there when we were being taken around and having Sam tell us about the areas. But then when we went in to actually investigate, I was getting the same exact feeling. And I try to not project anything. I'm really conscientious about that. And so the fact that I had that same feeling come on again right away kind of made me curious.
Yeah, and I think, because you were trying to use the dowsing rods in there and they just weren't even working properly. They were like pointing in different directions and not answering, and it was just weird.
It just seemed like a very confused state.
Interesting.
It just felt like disconcerting and confused, and I don't know. I don't think I've ever had a feeling like that before when we've been investigating someplace.
And now a little break for a word about one of our sponsors. Next, we hit the dining room where Marion is said to play and pull on people's clothing. And this is the little great-granddaughter, to remind everybody. We did manage to get someone to light up one of our cat balls for us, and it moved slightly. This is the first quick EVP session we conducted, and it sounded like we may have gotten a couple of answers. We'll play the full audio first without amplification of those answers. See if you guys hear anything.
Do we have anybody in here with us? Can you tell us your name? How old are you? Did you enjoy eating in this room? What was your favorite type of food to eat? Do you have a favorite thing for dinner? Did you have to cook dinner?
Did Anna let anybody have sweets before dinner?
Oh.
Some treats?
Did you have a favorite dessert?
We think after we asked if someone was with us that we got a breathy yes. And then we asked for a name, and it sounded like a name was given. We'll go ahead and play this for you guys again. This is amplified.
Do we have anybody in here with us? Can you tell us your name?
And I'll play it one more time.
Do we have anybody in here with us? Can you tell us your name?
Now, Diane thought that the name sounded like Curtis. For myself, I just hear the sound. Everything's very breathy for these EVPs, so it's kind of hard to determine. So I'm not certain what name it was. And then there was this.
Do you have a favorite thing for dinner?
Kelly, Isn't that weird? It sounded kind of like a gulp after you asked, what did you like for dinner?
I know, that's too amusing. I mean, it could be something else, obviously a different artifact, but that is what it sounded like.
Yeah, it could be an audio artifact, which just coincidentally happened after you asked about eating. But I thought maybe it was a ghost playing with us, doing a little gulp.
Next, we went into the former store area and we stood around Mr. Whaley's desk.
This is a wonderful desk. It's very beautiful. Who did this desk belong to?
You have a lovely home, Mr. Whaley.
I'm going to go ahead and play that one more time, but it sounded almost like a voice. I think it sounds like a kid. You think it sounds older, is saying dad or yeah to me. I'll play it again here.
This is a wonderful desk. It's very beautiful. Who did this desk belong to?
You have a lovely home, Mr. Whaley.
I definitely hear it. To me, it sounds like it's saying dad, but it doesn't sound like a little kid to me.
Okay. And we finished the evening in the courtroom. The REM pod was going off a lot in here, as we'd said earlier. I went and sat in the jury box and did an Estes session. We're going to go ahead and play that here.
What in the world? And also the EMF over next to Diane just went off. Thank you. Appreciate that. So can you actually speak through her right now with the spirit box? She can hear you. She can't hear me. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Is this Mr. Whaley? Or perhaps Francis?
Hiya.
Hiya. How's it going? Thanks for hanging out. And
Yes.
Mr. Whaley? Or Francis? I suppose you would be Mr. Whaley also. Let's see. Is it Francis?
Up.
What was that? Sorry, I didn't quite catch it.
People.
Multiple people?
Left.
It's a beautiful home here. We've been on the outside before and admired it, but never had the opportunity to come inside. Thank you for sharing this with us. Seems like you were pretty passionate about this location.
Sorry.
What are you sorry for? There's definitely some tragedy that occurred here. That's why the family moved away. We've heard the history. We're sorry. It's a very tragic loss. A few of them, actually. You want to share anything with us through the headphones over there? Or perhaps as the person that's sorry, somebody that was on trial here. That seat position would have been a juror. But it could be somebody else that's communicating. If there's somebody still here, can you please turn on the lights over there? Go closer.
Jeff.
Jeff?
You should.
There's somebody passing through. Or was it somebody on trial? Is Jeff somebody that was on trial?
And if you
I want to know what you were.
point.
I want to know what you were on trial for. Are we speaking with Mr. Whaley again? We don't mean any disrespect. Just want to hear what you have to say. Did you enjoy this?
Her.
Her?
I love you.
Well, thank you. I don't really know you very well, but
Three.
There's three of us.
Anna.
And for the recorder, the EMF went off with that. Is Anna here? EMF went off very slightly. Again. Can you please make that go away?
Bacon.
She did say bacon. I like bacon. Not sure if that's what she said.
It's a chance to prove.
Thank you. I do see that the EMF is going off a little bit more and like a little bit more confirmation. Make it go off a little bit higher, but definitely appreciate it. There's a recorder right there as well if you'd like to say something into that.
Interesting that the EMF went off after I said Anna. And then Kelly, right at the end there's almost a little bit of an audio artifact or something.
To me, because I caught it when we were just listening back, to me it sounded like somebody right up on the microphone of the recorder, either breathing or saying, like,
Yeah.
but in a breathy whisper type way. It was definitely something that was close to the recorder, which, clearly you can hear my voice is different standing where I was standing in terms of the proximity to the recorder. You were sitting to the side of it, and it has a definite different sound, like it was right up on it.
Yeah, I'm always closest to the recorder. As a matter of fact, I usually have it on my body because I have a bag that it like slips into.
But in that circumstance, it was on the chair.
It was on the chair. So when it's close to me, that's why it almost sounds like there's no background noise or any of that static that you sometimes hear. And like when Kelly's talking, you can kind of hear static in the background because I'm having to amp that up so that you guys can hear her better. And so you can almost tell when there's something closer to the recorder, it gets a different sound to it. And that had like almost a break to the static. And then there's like this noise. So it is almost like something was right on the mic going, or something.
And it was immediately after we were asking if that was Anna and the EMF lit up.
Yeah. So I don't know if it was somebody sighing. I don't know how many people come through here if they get tired of dealing with people after a while.
Anna.
And for the recorder, the EMF went off with that. Is Anna here? EMF went off very slightly. Again. Can you please make that go away?
Bacon.
At the end, it was really cool. Rarely does this happen when we do an investigation, and I wish it happened every time when you're with a group of people you don't know, because you're never going to talk to these people again, so you don't know what evidence they caught. And Sam had us all sit down and share any experiences that we had. Obviously, we couldn't go back and listen to our recordings and stuff, but let each other know what we'd gotten. I'll go ahead and play that little bit here.
The little girl, we asked if it was her, and the light started going off.
And we heard a moan.
We did hear a moan in the kitchen.
Audibly.
I think we got the most out of Jim.
Yeah, I do Jim.
In the parlor, Jim was really communicative with us,
Yeah, what did he tell you? Boat, fish, and what else?
He sang like a song. It was like a camp song, and it was just like singing.
That's neat.
Anyway, I took it off.
And then who told you to leave this fair?
The theater.
The theater.
Yeah, the theater.
Those two,
We got bad energy at the theater all the way around. It was like, okay, we're out of here, buddy.
Here, because when we first went into the theater, we got don't leave.
You got
Really?
We got don't.
Interesting.
We got that in the kitchen.
But it does seem like the theater had the most activity for us.
Yeah.
See, for us, it was the parlor.
Well, we stayed in the parlor longer, I think,
Yeah,
because we felt more comfortable there, but we didn't have good feelings upstairs.
Violet's room was really dark, too.
Violet's room was dark, yeah.
I definitely think over the spirit box we did the Estes method. I heard a female say shot.
Really?
Yeah, so that was
Where at?
Where at?
I think we were in the master bedroom.
Really?
Okay. Was there a lot of activity in the master bedroom or no?
Yeah.
Really?
That's all we got was stuff with the spirit box like that.
That was a place we were nervous to go. I mean, we never really made it. We just watched you guys explore in there. Did anybody explore in here?
We did.
Did you? Was there anything in this room?
The REM pod was going off like crazy.
I was spending the majority of my time in this room, in between checking on the guys and eavesdropping. REM pod went off a few times, and I did some EVPs and just some basic questions to Francis. I'll go back and review those later, let you guys know. It was a really interesting thing that the wee interesting thing that happened in here was the REM pod was sitting here at EMF, we were here, and the flux 2 down there. And every time the REM pod would start going off, the flux would indicate something was going on in this direction. So that was interesting.
It was a great time. Highly recommend it. Even if you don't want to do the ghost tour or the ghost hunt of the house, definitely go during the day. It is such a beautiful historic home. And the fact that it has so much furniture from the original family and that they've reset everything up like the different periods that the house has had, just very cool.
I want to go back again and investigate, just straight up investigate with our own little group.
Yeah.
Where we have more time to explore and spend more time in the different rooms.
Might have to contact Sam and find out how much does it cost for a private.
The Whaley House makes it hard to be a skeptic, with the hundreds of photographs that have seemed to capture ghostly myths and figures and the hundreds of eyewitness accounts of interaction with things unseen. And we definitely feel like we interacted with possible spirits. Have most of the members of the Whaley family that once lived here decided to stay here in the afterlife? Are the spirits of the executed still haunting the land and the home built here? Is the Whaley House haunted?
That is for you to decide. Kelly, I definitely think something's going on here. How about you?
I most certainly do.
I don't know what Jared thought of it. He's told us he's not sure about a lot of this stuff, if he believes it or not. So
I think he's a skeptic, but he's also spiritual. He knows his Bible and everything very well. So I can't imagine that you discount this completely, knowing the stories in the Bible.
Exactly. We'd love to have you guys check out our website at historygoesbump.com. And if you'd like to send us some feedback, you can do that at historygoesbump@gmail.com or on any of our various social media sites. As a matter of fact, we heard from John on Instagram. This is going back to episode 470. And remember, we were talking about Mad Anthony Wayne getting boiled in the cauldron or the pot?
Yes.
Well, John said the cauldron that Anthony Wayne was boiled in is on display at the Hagen History Museum in Erie.
Oh, my goodness.
So it really happened, folks, and they saved the cauldron.
Great.
Glad they didn't save all the bits and pieces that were in the cauldron.
Well, he was missing bits and pieces by the time he was buried.
That's true. They're on the road somewhere. Maybe he'll find them eventually. And then Katie left a comment on our website. Hi, Diane and Kelly. I'm a longtime listener who fell off due to life, but I'm back working my way through the new episodes. I've missed you guys. Well, we missed you too.
Yeah, thanks for coming back.
We know sometimes people go off and do other things, or you just don't have as much time to listen to podcasts, but we're always happy to have you come back, and there's plenty of content for you to fill up on.
Most definitely. And if you go through it all and you need more, you can always sign up for the Redux episodes at $5.
Yeah, we just dropped a McMenamin's Edgefield one. This is the redux of an episode we did back in 2016. Kelly, there's about 8 minutes of history and over 30 minutes of haunting experiences on this one. It is amazing how crazy haunted that place is.
Most certainly.
I want to thank you guys for tuning into this episode. I've been your host, Diane.
And this has been Kelly.
You take care now. Bye-bye. This episode is brought to you by our executive producers.
Dispatches from the Grave Digger.
We have 4 people to welcome into the cemetery, Mort. Here we go. Elizabeth, Brandy Richards, Jennifer Malone, and Jennifer Billingham are all going to be placed under chest tombs. So they got access to that redux we just dumped, along with a bunch of other bonus casts. Over 200, and I think we're up to 7 or 8 reduxes now, maybe 10. I can't remember.
So much content. Thank you so much for supporting History Goes Bump, and I certainly hope you enjoy those Redux episodes.
Sweet dreams.
Alexander. God. Alexander.
I didn't know that's how you said Alex.
Alexander.
Are you turning into a zombie? I know we just finished the final season of Walking Dead and it's on our mind, but come on. Thomas Whaley left New York on a Stemo?
Stemo? Is that like emo?
Cargo. Shit.
It's an emo Stemo.
He was going to be all emo on there. He got off and was like, look at my clothes. I'm so different. Bring on the gold rush.
Oh my gosh.
Whaley set up a store with another businessman named George Wardle on Montgomery Street. Wardle. It rolls right off the tongue. Wardle. After arriving, they lived with Thomas? He lived with Thomas.
Our tongues and mouths just are not working this morning.
Not today.
The house was large enough. Large enough?
It's enough for me.
Yankee. Jesus.
Sorry. I knew you wouldn't be able to hear me.
Scared me. It was because I felt like I got touched on it.
I shouldn't have touched that part of you. I wanted to go to the bedroom. So that's okay.